come up to do something in front of people. So whenever they come up and whenever they do something, or whenever you see them doing something positive, you need to give them your full focus. Just like when Pastor was giving the Bible study, you could hear a pin drop in here over him speaking. So they need the same kind of love, attention, and respect that you would give an adult. Because again, it takes a lot of courage to come up here and do that. And if they don't feel that, if they start building fear from what it is that they get from you, they're not going to come up here and do this. They're not going to stay here. They're going to go out. They can be out somewhere else doing whatever it is that they're doing. But they're here working for the Lord, and they need the same kind of encouragement and attention and love that you would give to anybody else. Are we clear on that? I don't even seem like we're clear on that. Are we clear on that? Thank you very much. I said something about the Barker children. The Barker children are very, very, very smart children. Children that get excellent grades in school. I'm very happy to hear that you're graduating. So I know that, and I've seen the post about how you were here, like, I need a job, and I'm happy to see that God opened up something for you. Amen. Let's praise God for that. I'm here to speak on the subject of courage. I believe that courage is one of is the foundation for a Christian. If you're not courageous, you can't be a follower of Christ. And it's funny to me how the Bible usually uses young people to show what courage really is. And they use God uses young people to show adults what courage is. A young person, he wasn't that young, but he was young towards their standards, Joshua. In Joshua chapter 1, I believe that's an incredible place to find out about courage. Joshua chapter 1, God is commissioning Joshua for the task that he's about to undertake. He's taken over from Moses, and he's about to he's leading the children of Israel to inherit the land that God had given them. Now, God is telling him all the things that he needs to do, but 2 points that he drove in his head is that he needed to be courageous and he needed to be obedient to God. He told Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, he said, be courageous, be very courageous, be courageous. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses was commissioning Joshua also to do the same thing. He told him the same exact thing. Be courageous, be very courageous, be courageous, and also obey the word of God. Now, why is it that Joshua is being told twice, and in the same manner to be courageous? Fear is contagious, just like a cold, just like the flu. If I had the flu and I sneeze on somebody, they're easy to catch the flu. But fear is contagious. If you look at the children of Israel, and you look at when the children of Israel, people in the children of Israel began to murmur. When they were at the Red Sea, they began to murmur. Or when they, in any situation in the world where they faced an issue. When Joshua and Caleb and the spies went over to spy the land and they came back, and the people said, we can't do this. And it built fear in the people that they couldn't do it. Fear is contagious. Whenever somebody sees a fearful Christian, they can't see the power of God. So why is it that they would want to serve God? We are representatives of God. That's why God is telling Joshua as a leader, you need to be courageous. You need to be very courageous. You need to be courageous and obey my words. If Joshua went out there and showed any kind of fear, his fear would rub off on all that were following after him, and they wouldn't believe in what it was that God told them that they were able to do. Now, a young person who's growing up in their home, young people learn fear from their parents. For Christians, we're always telling our children, listen, this is what God says. You need to follow God, and you need to have faith in God, and you need to, whenever you hit a situation, God. God is almighty, God is all powerful, God is omniscient. He's everything, He can do anything and everything for you. But then we get hit with a situation, as Brother Spades was saying. We get hit with a situation, and all those things that we know up here, we have to put into action. But because we haven't had a true experience with God, we don't know how to put it into effect. When the bills start to come, and in front of our children, we begin to worry. But we're told if we put God first, all these things He'll take care of. But we begin to show that worry, and they see it. We don't believe that they see it. Our parents don't believe that they see it, but they see it. Now they're learning God is not this powerful God that you've been telling me about, because you're just speaking it, but you're not living it. So the children see through us, through the adults, through parents, through guardians, through whoever, what it is to be courageous. There is no courageous person outside of God. You can't be courageous outside of God. That's where courage is built from. That's where that's the source of power that it is that we have to tap into. But because we haven't tapped into it, many of us, not all of us, but many of us, our children are growing up not to be courageous. They're not growing up to be the leaders, the royal priesthood that they're called to be. Because we're not being the example that it is that we need to be. That's why when they grow up and they hit a problem, they hit their schoolwork. Oh man, I can't pass this test. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to do whatever it is that they're seeking out or searching to do. They're ready to put the Bible aside to study their schoolwork. I gotta wake up early in the morning and study my schoolwork. If I read the Bible, then it's going to take away time from that, and I have to do this. But if they saw from you, when this trial happens, when this struggle happens, as Joshua saw with Moses, when this trial happens and when this struggle happens, that if I stand for God, that He'll take care of everything else. He'll take care of everything else. They will know. Listen, if I put God first, I know that He is. My fear for Him is the beginning of wisdom. So I'll have the wisdom to be able to take care of whatever schoolwork or whatever it is that I have to take care of. In my school, I have wisdom that surpasses anybody else in my classroom, because they're not tapping into this source. But it begins with us. When the bill collector calls me and tell our kids, listen, tell them I'm not here. It begins with us. They don't see that courage. They don't see that courageousness in us. If we want to see an army of young people that are supposed to be leading this church at a certain time, we have to build them from the time that they are now to be courageous. That means when they come up here to perform, when they come up here to minister, when they come up here to speak, that we empower them, that we motivate them to continue doing it, that we instead of telling the young people, or we see young people doing something, instead of telling them, listen, you're bad or this person, and going out and gossiping with your friends about this person's son or this person's daughter, but going over there and encouraging and empowering them, it causes a difference. They're able to be courageous. Why do they need to be courageous? Because there's a work that God has for these youth to do that Satan sees. And He wants to take that power away from them. Just like how they're being built in their house, this is a house with a gigantic family. And our attention is supposed to be focusing for the next generation. Some of us, our time is almost done to be leaders here. It's time for the young people to be leaders here. But again, you need to empower and encourage. Now this is why young people, God puts so much emphasis on training of young people. If you look at David, King Saul, because he stepped away. Matter of fact, let me ask you this question. Where does fear come from? What was the first instance of fear that we find in the Bible? Genesis, Adam and Eve. Why did they become fearful? Because they sinned. Because they took a step away from God. They moved away from God. Now if you look at Saul moved away from God. As the Holy Spirit was trying to contend with him, Saul moved away from God. There was an instance where they were out to battle against the Philistines, and there was this great warrior called Goliath. Because of the leader, the fearfulness that the leader had, the entire Israelite army, grown men, were afraid to go to battle with this giant. Now, we have David. And now this is where our courage comes from, our faith in God. It doesn't come from anything within us. It comes from tapping into the source of power and having faith that power will take us. While David was tending his sheep, a lion came and tried to take away, to kill his sheep. And he protected his sheep. Again, he put himself in front of that lion, and protected his flock, and he killed that lion. Again, a bear came, and he did the same thing. Now when he came to Saul and he saw this great vast army, it upset him. Because one, he attributed his success with defeating the lion and the bear with God being before him. Now he's looking at Israel, God's people, and they're afraid of people that are outside in the world, people who God is against. He's thinking about the stories back when Joshua, when they fought the battle of Jericho, and all they had to do was shout. So many stories where all the children of Israel had to do was be courageous and go to battle, and the angels went out before them and slew whoever it was that they were facing. Where angels went out and confused the army that they were fighting, where all they had to do was just draw a sword and kill. And he said, one man is causing an entire army. Now, one man is able to be courageous. Why? Because the leader is not courageous. You know what? As a young person, I have to be the leader. I'm going to be the leader. He went up, Saul said, listen, before you go out, let's put some weaponry on him. So he put a shield, gave him a sword, gave him all these things. And he said, listen, I can't go out here with this. This is too heavy for me. I can't go out to battle with this, but I have the greatest weapon of all. My God protected me against the lion. My God protected me against the bear. When I go out, my God is going to protect me against this giant. Amen. And he went out, and we know the story, he slew Goliath. And the people that were fearful, the people that did not have 1 ounce of courage within them, all of a sudden, that courage became contagious. And they went out and they slew the Philistines. This is why we need to encourage our young people. This is why we need to empower them. This is why we need to motivate them. Because that's the job that God has for them to do, so that they can go out into the world. If someone is not Christian, and they've heard about God, they've heard about this great God that does all these miracles, and they see a Christian, they see a cowardly Christian, why would they want to be a Christian? Some of us, we have sicknesses, and the sicknesses bring us down to the point. But we have an awesome and powerful God that's able to do anything. That if you bring it to him in prayer and you have the faith, the courage to have the faith that he's able to do it, he will do it. Elijah prayed for it not to rain, and the only reason why it didn't rain was because he had the faith that it was not going to rain. He had the faith that I asked God that it wasn't going to rain. And I have this communication, I have this relationship with God. My mind is in tune with his. My desires are, his desires are my desires. I'm not going to ask him for anything that's outside of his will. I believe that because I asked for it, I'm going to get it. We're supposed to come boldly but humbly before the throne of grace. If we're in God and we ask God for something, we're going to receive it. There is no reason to be correct. There's no reason to fear. There's no reason to fear someone saying, listen, I need you to work. You have to work on the Sabbath or you're going to lose your job. My brother's fiance, she used to get this Friday, she was able to leave early. All of a sudden, her job said, listen, you're going to have to work into your Sabbath, and we don't care. If you don't do it, you're fired. And if you leave this meeting and you don't agree to it, you can pick up your bags and walk away. She got up, she picked up her bags, and she walked out the door. They kept calling her and threatening her, saying, listen, you're going to lose your job. And she said, listen, I can work extra other days, but on Friday, I have to go home and I have to prepare for the Sabbath. Now this is someone that's new to the faith. This is someone that's new to the faith, only and is still learning about it. But was able to have the courage, a job that it is that she needs, was able to have the courage to stand for it. And you know what happened? They respected the courage that it is that she had. They called her back this past Thursday. They sat down and had a meeting with her and said, listen, you know what? All right, you can leave early on the Fridays. Listen, you need to do this part of the job better and that part of it. They started chastising her for no reason. She didn't have to say a word. She didn't have to fight. She didn't have to quarrel. But because she was courageous, God went out and fought the battle for her. Because the children of Israel were courageous in the battle of Jericho. When they said, listen, there's a matter of the giants over there. God went out and fought the battle for them. There is no battle that it is that we will face in our lives that God will not fight for us if we would just show the courage that we have faith in him. My God is able to do anything. Listen, some situations, it's like I'm standing in front of saying, like, what's up? Go ahead. If I have the power to, I will punch Satan in the face. But there's nothing that he can bring to me that's going to make me fear. I will not give him my fear anymore. I will not give him the satisfaction of seeing me suffer anymore. And neither should you. We serve a great, mighty, and awesome God. There's no reason for us to fear. Joshua stood in front of the people after God spoke to him and said, listen, be courageous, be very courageous, be courageous because God is with us. And I'm telling you, be courageous, be very courageous because God is with us. There's nothing that can be against us.
Amen. Amen.
Wasn't that powerful?
Amen.
Thank you, Andre. Now with that, I am going to be courageous. At this time,